Madam Clerk, the time is 7 p.m. on Tuesday, February 11th, 2020. I'd like to call this public planning meeting to order. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Humphreys and Councillor Gilliland. Oh, we did. Oh, we got a, oh, sorry, tabulators, please. Forgot. Who are we waiting for? Did everyone vote on the tabulator? Okay. Great. That passes. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? No? So welcome to Aurora's public planning meeting. The purpose of this public meeting is to inform the public and obtain public input regarding the proposed scope of the town's official plan review and the key issues that need to be addressed through the study process. For the matter being considered by council tonight, the following process will occur. 1. Town planning staff will outline the purpose and proposed scope of the official plan review. 2. Following staff's presentation, members of the public will be invited to offer their comments or concerns respecting the proposal. And 3. Town staff will answer your questions. I'll keep track of the questions, and when I have several, I will direct them to whoever can best answer them. It is very important that the town receive the correct names and addresses of individuals having an interest in the official plan review. Therefore, if you plan to speak to council at this meeting, or if you wish to be notified of any further council or committee meetings concerning the official plan review being considered, you must complete one of the green interested party forms and give it to our committee coordinator sitting at the front. Is Linda there? Under the Planning Act, residents have the right to appeal any decision of council on a planning matter to the local planning appeal tribunal. But you must verbally express any comments or concerns here tonight, or submit any comments or concerns in writing to the town prior to council adopting an amendment. The tribunal may dismiss all or part of an appeal made in respect of a planning matter. The public meeting is being audio and video recorded. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information are being recorded according to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our town clerk prepare accurate minutes and to create a record that is available to the general public, including the town's website. Questions about this collection should be directed to the town clerk, Town of Aurora. I'll now ask the Deputy Town Clerk to confirm that notification to the public occurred as required by the Planning Act.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Respecting Item 1, PDS 20-014, Town of Aurora Official Plan Review. A notice of the public planning meeting was published in the Aurora Banner and Aurora newspapers, posted on the town's study webpage and social media, and emailed via the town's monthly broadcast emails, as well as to interested parties. Public notification has been provided in accordance with the Planning Act.
Great, thank you, Deputy Clerk. I'll now ask our Senior Policy Planner, Michael Logue, to offer his presentation.
Okay, good evening to the chair, members of council and the public. My name is Michael Logue. I am a senior policy planner here in the Planning and Development Services Department. This evening's meeting is to officially kick off our official plan review. Just quickly, prior to this meeting, we did hold a drop-in the open house outside the council chambers here from 4:30 to 6:30. And hope you had a chance to check out some of those boards out there we have prepared. Also, just wanted to quickly acknowledge our staff that assisted with the open house tonight. So, quick thank you to Matthew and Catherine from Planning and Cindy from Communications for helping out with that portion of the open house tonight. So, the town of Aurora is initiating a review of its official plan. So, updating the official plan is not just good practice, it's actually a legislative requirement set out in the Ontario Planning Act. So the Planning Act requires the town to update our official plan every 5 to 10 years to ensure that the policies conform with provincial and regional plans and policies. The town must also review existing policies in the plan to ensure that they continue to reflect the growing and changing needs of the community. So it's the Provincial Planning Act that sets out those minimum requirements for updating an official plan. Those include goals, objectives, and policies, managing and directing physical change, and the effects on the social, economic, built, and natural environment. The Planning Act also directs that official plans include policies related to climate change, affordable housing, inclusionary zoning, public consultation, secondary suites, and major transit station areas. Just a little bit of history on our official plan. Our current OP was adopted by Council in the year 2010. It has been subject to roughly 20 amendments in those 10 years. Through this current municipal comprehensive review, the town will bring the official plan policies into conformity with provincial plans and policies, which would include the provincial policy statement, the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan. So as you may be aware, York Region is currently undertaking their own municipal comprehensive review to bring the regional official plan in conformity with some of those same provincial plans and documents. So the anticipated regional council adoption of their official plan amendment is now early 2021. So that's just slightly delayed from the last time we were before you. It was originally targeting late 2020, late this year. The regional MCR will provide policy direction to local municipalities, such as matters on local intensification targets, major transit station area boundaries and targets, employment area conversions, employment density targets for our employment areas, as well as natural heritage area mapping. The town will have 1 year to update our official plan from the date of the approval of York Region's official plan. So the town's current official plan is premised on a vision and 12 guiding principles. So those current 12 principles are on the screen before you. They're also on the boards outside from the open house. So I won't read all of those, but through the official plan review, the vision and principles will be revisited to ensure they are current and reflect the changing needs of the town. Okay, as mentioned, our OP review draft work plan is also going to be based on those 12 guiding principles in the current official plan as a starting point. We've also done some further work to break down that draft program as proposed into 5 phases and 6 focus areas of study. So in the diagram on the right with the rectangles, we're at the very beginning of that process, background review. Those next 2 rectangles, growth analysis, complete, vibrant, and healthy communities, and infrastructure and movement. Those are the 3 phases that are going to make up the bulk of the work, and those are also those same 3 phases that you're going to see in the circular diagram on the bottom left. So those 3 phases are going to encompass those 6 focus areas I'd mentioned. So those are the ones inside of the wheel there, the 6 slices of pie. So they are infrastructure and movement, employment strategy, growth management strategy, neighborhoods, complete community and housing, environment and climate strategy, as well as urban design, greening, and heritage. So another part of updating our official plan is incorporating any technical studies that have been undertaken by the town since our last official plan. So there's some images on the screen of some of those that including some of our master plans and studies. So in concert with corporate communications, the planning department has developed a public engagement and communication strategy. The purpose of the public consultation strategy is to create, implement, and manage an innovative approach to public engagement through a combination of in-person and online approaches that will reach, engage, and capture a broad spectrum of perspectives. So we intend to exceed the minimum consultation requirements in the Planning Act, and staff have already been well underway in this initiative. We pre-launched the study over the summer and early fall of 2019 by hosting 8 planner pop-up events. So planner pop-ups are non-statutory, informal, meet-and-greet style public consultations. These were events hosted in accessible locations throughout the town. The list is on the screen there, a little tricky to read, but we were at places like Concerts in the Park, and we went to the GO station one morning to catch commuters on their way, just to try and capture those the feedback from people that may not necessarily make it out to a public meeting. So using this format, staff have already engaged over 300 members of the public. So the public engagement strategy for the study proposes 2 steering committees that will provide focused input at various stages in the study process. The technical and community steering committees will be a resource on key issues and policy recommendations. The technical steering committee will be comprised of key staff from the town, York Region, and various agencies, such as our conservation authorities. Staff envision the community steering committee including 3 representatives from council, resident groups, youth representatives, and key stakeholders who will provide feedback on the study process. So council will also be regularly engaged throughout the process by regular planning update reports and discussion papers. Okay, second last slide. So next steps, where do we go from here? We're refining the scope of work for the study, which includes engaging key resources from the region and the conservation authorities on some of that technical background. We will be back again before council with a report on the work plan, tentatively targeting spring, which will be refined based on input received from the public, such as today, and at our previous community planner pop-ups. And we have also recently issued a request for proposal to retain a public engagement consultant. And that concludes our presentation on the Town of Aurora Official Plan Review.
Thank you, Mr. Logue. Now I'll open this up to the public. If there's any members of the public who have any comments on the presentation, please come up, state your name and address, and you'd have 5 minutes.
Good evening. What a crowd. My name is Neil Aslan, and I live on Royal Road. And I don't know that I can make this brief, but I have 2 concerns that I'd like to at least express, probably the most unpopular opinion, judging by social media and other channels in this town. But I think a lot of issues that, the 12 issues that were out on the boards in the hallway, a lot of them are they intersect. And I won't get into that because I think planning professionals know how they do that. But I have 2 concerns, as I said, and one of them is that this town is sprawling, and 60 years of development have led to this sprawl, but it is created, and we continually reinforce a car-centric planning style, which if you listen to anything going on in the world, even outside of York Region, this should be something we're discouraging. And I live on the Yonge Street corridor. I can walk to the GO station. Yet, getting anywhere on my bicycle is, not safe, first of all, not pleasant. Getting around as a pedestrian, in the summer, there are bicycles on the sidewalk, and I don't blame them because they don't feel safe. But it makes the pedestrian experience not safe. I can walk 5 minutes to the grocery store, but that walk is so unpleasant along Yonge Street because there are no buffers from the sidewalk to the lanes. The lanes are too wide. People are speeding. There are no trees. It's just parking lots and drive-throughs, and we continually go along this path of reinforcing the need for a car, even though, we have things at our doorstep, but we should also be building around town and centering around a localized microeconomy. Bayview is very unfriendly, and a lot of our retail is located on Bayview. I can cycle here in 10 minutes, but in order to do it safely, it takes me 20 minutes. And, I don't have options. I have trails. Well, trails are great for leisure cycling, but they're not great for a practical, active transit option. And so, Wellington is horrible. And I know that on Bayview there are paved lanes along the sidewalk, but they're not painted, they're not indicated, there's no signs, so you still have people riding their bikes on the sidewalks. The other issue, I'll skip over that because I think I made my point, but the other issue is that, again, for 60 years we're sprawling, and we're sprawling because we're only building single-family dwellings. And that's great, but there's a lot of people that get left out of that equation. There's a need for rental housing, and I don't know when the last time any purpose-built rental happened here. My guess is maybe 20 years, judging by the architecture style. But secondary suites are fine, but they're not the best option. Living in a damp basement, breathing in radon, we're not creating really healthy options for people. There's no shame in renting, and there's no shame in having our neighborhoods accommodate renters, and just building along a promenade plan. We're not really promoting a mixed-use, vibrant neighborhood. I'll try to wrap this up. But we're allowing people to build a GFA of 4,000 square feet. This is really giving way to a luxury market, and it's not helping people who are marginalized. And there's no reason why 4,000 square feet can't be spread out over 3 or 4 units in our neighborhood. If it's compatible, if we're saying it's compatible, then why can't we just include more people and create a soft density option along with mid-rise? That's called the missing middle. And I just want to say that I feel that this process has already become political, and I really reject that. I see that there are members on council who take to social media and are already saying that they want to keep our small town charm, and put a kibosh on any kind of height restriction, or not on any kind of height over a certain amount. And I just go over a little bit. I think that creates a venue for dissent, but the wrong kind of dissent, and it weaponizes anything that makes our community better and safer and more inclusionary by saying that, we want to keep Aurora. It sounds like a dog whistle to me, like keeping America great again. And it doesn't, if you're an outsider and you have another opinion, that actually frames the debate and limits it, and limits any kind of intellectual dialogue around architecture and progressive planning that we probably do have the expertise in-house. I have faith in staff, and there's also a lot of specialists out there who have knowledge, and there's proven tools. But by making these statements from over there to us, saying that you've already decided how this process is going to turn out, we are really limiting our options here, and we're leaving people out. Home ownership is unaffordable, but it doesn't mean everybody has to own a house and have a mortgage.
Mr. Heslin, if you want to wrap it up, and I'll
Yep,
give you another
that's it.
opportunity to come back.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have any comments on the presentation? Mr. Aslan, did you want to come back a second time?
I want to note that I reviewed an FOI request recently, and that one of our planning consultants said that in an email, and I'll note that it wasn't rejected by staff. It may have been verbally, but it's not on the record, that nobody cares what's in the hot dog. They only care that it tastes good. And I find that we need good policy, and someone who's driving our policy and giving us information that you're dissecting or disseminating or discussing, to say that, first of all, this statement's out of touch. I mean, if even in the world of deli meats, people do care what's in their hot dogs these days. I mean, that it's a very out of touch statement. But it's also saying that whatever looks good out there is more important than what is inside and what it means and what it brings to the table and what it allows us, how it allows us to move forward. So I really want to just say at this point that we need to open our minds and open our eyes and open some books and understand what good policy is, not what's popular, because sometimes it isn't going to be popular, and there are a lot of things that have proven to be good policy even though they weren't popular and they didn't fit into a 4-year election cycle. Some things are better taken slowly and taken cautiously and really get at the root of the humanity in our town and what's most important. And again, it goes back to, for me, those two issues about creating equitability on our streets, in mobility, transportation, and also in housing. And that's all I'll say. Thank you. Thanks for the chance to come up again.
So, there were a few questions in there and some comments. Mr. Aslan talked about sprawl, carcinogenic planning style, unsafe bike and pedestrians along Young Corridor, insufficient trees, and he also talked about our stable neighborhoods and the height. Mr. Waters, did you want to comment?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think what's important to realize is that Aurora now is essentially out of its greenfield development for residential. So future growth will be in the form of higher densities, more than likely, and we'll have to meet the targets that are set out by the Region of York official plan in terms of accommodating future growth, which will be assigned to the town through the regional MCR process. It's also important to note that one of the principles of the official plan is to protect stable neighborhoods. And we went through a very long process to get to that point in time. So in my view, it's still considered to be an appropriate principle to adhere to, but I understand that there is a need to intensify and to provide the missing middle in strategic areas, such as major transit station areas, and also within our Yonge Street corridor. That's defined by the Promenade Plan. With regards to active transportation, I think Mr. Aslan raises a very good point. We just finished our update to our Transportation Master Plan, which we bring forward to you next month, which will identify how we plan to deal with growth within our transportation network to 2041. So we'll be providing that information to you next month. Part of that includes a active transportation component, which we will need to provide more detail in the future through an actual strategy. So I think Mr. Aslan raises some very important points, and I thank him for that we'll be considering as part of our review of the focus areas.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. With that, I'll open this to members of council if they have any questions for Mr. Logue regarding the presentation? Councillor Gilland?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. You had some slides that were up when we hadn't received this report prior and about the 12 principles, and you kind of skimmed over it really, really quick, and I really wanted to see what that list entailed. I didn't really capture it, so I really feel like I can't ask you any questions based on that list, and I was wondering if maybe you could pop that up again. And while you're popping that up, I just kind of wanted to make a comment about the transportation master plan that through Mr. Chair to Mr. Waters about bringing that forward. I just kind of wanted to make a comment that the Community Advisory Committee I've put on the agenda to talk about active transportation discussion in general, and I do have engineering coming to that. With an initiative to try and incorporate more of that active transportation, and perhaps there's something in that report that can come to Community Advisory Committee as well for comment, because I know that's something that they have a really vested interest in, and we've been talking about that. Anytime that there's been a project that's gone forward with new roads, restructuring, I've asked engineering if we can include bike lanes as we are reconstructing, and I really certainly hope that we can include these discussions within that committee, especially as we kind of come to a close with these decisions.
Thank you, Councillor Gilland. Anything else?
Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to go through some of these, and I was wondering if perhaps you can kind of touch on these just a little bit, because you said you were just going to glaze through them, and I didn't really have a chance to understand what exactly the 12 priorities were. So can you expand and kind of talk about these just a little bit more than what we kind of got to see?
Mr. Hogue?
This is the first time I've seen this list, so.
Okay, yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So these are the existing 12 principles, or basically chapters of our current official plan. So that's what they are. So these are the 12 sections of our current OP, and generally the thought at the staff level is that, you know, the bones of our current OP are fairly good. So we thought this would be a good starting point to begin with as through this review. So, I mean, if you look through the list, nothing really stands out as being sort of out of touch. Here we are 10 years later, but so that's why, well, that's also why we're consulting today. You know, we're holding these sessions. Are these the right 12? Did we miss something? Are any of them no longer correct? So, these are the 12 that were vetted as part of the 2010 plan, basically.
Councillor Gilland?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I don't really see, unless I'm missing something about active transportation here, but yet it seems to be something of concern, and I do agree with the delegate that active transportation does hold a place in my heart about getting around, and it isn't easy to travel around the town of Aurora, whether you are in a community hub or not. So is there something in this 12-piece bucket that's going to encompass that?
Mr. Logue?
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the last bullet on the list there, providing sustainable infrastructure, that would have included active transportation networks and those sorts of things. But, you know, if the point wants to be made that that should be of a higher priority, or, you know, we'll take that away.
I think Mr. Waters wanted to chime in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Logue is quite correct. Sustainable infrastructure would be the category where we would deal with active transportation. I think the point here is that these 12 principles are still very relevant today. That doesn't prevent us from adding others or rewording them to reflect where we are today in 2020. Because you have to remember that when this plan was drafted, it was drafted more than 10 years ago. And the world has changed significantly since then. So things like focusing on climate change, focusing on active transportation, you know, from a planner's point of view, we may see that in here, but from the public's point of view, they may not come out. So while we're not married to this list, I think the principles are still quite relevant. They may need to be just updated in today's world.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair, I agree that definitely we need to refine some of that. I do see building a greener community and the sustainable infrastructure kind of touching on both, but just the way that, like you said, the world's changing, I think we do need to move those up the list, and we need to really change the language and what that actually means, because it's very subjective in how that's being translated. Stormwater management, that's another one that's definitely should be top of priority, and how our infrastructure grows and how we can support that down the road. Providing a range of mixed housing, I think what the delegate was touching on is that middle missing, which I think you did touch on as well. And I know that we are moving up within the way that we build versus the green space, and perhaps that maybe need to be clarified a little bit in what we need for affordable housing. So those are my comments.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yep. And we'll have more time to talk on the item itself later, but we'll try to stick to the presentation. Councillor Gallo?
Well, most of my comments are regarding the report, so I'll hold off. Other than I agree with everything that the delegate had put forward, and I believe we're doing some of those. If we take a really detailed look at the Trails Master Plan, guided by Klaus, the whole premise is utilitarian off-road transportation. That is the whole premise of that plan, and that's how he designed it, so that people can get from their home to work, to shop, through our trail system. That's the whole plan of that plan, and I think we should augment that and really take that seriously. Particularly, issues are coming forward as we speak. Cousins Drive, those types of things we have to take seriously.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Humphreys?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and many of my comments have been stated as well, and I totally agree with both the colleagues here. And just in terms of one of the other comments that Mr. Aslan mentioned was the walkability of some of the sidewalks along our main areas are not friendly. It's a big deal. We've talked about them several times here in terms of how we can make the sidewalks wider with the buffer of trees against the road, and then so I think that's something we really need to think about when we do the promenade plan, because there's something there that talks about the official plan, but in the promenade area, it talks about doing that. We haven't done any of that, and I think we need to extend that in this official plan. So really to make it a walkable town, and something we need to look at. But that's all for now.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. So that brings us to an end to the Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. With respect to the presentation, there was a slide there that said different Aurora policies. I don't know if you can find that one, that the OP has to take into consideration.
What page is that, Councillor Gardner?
I didn't, sorry.
Oh, it's on the presentation, yeah.
Oh, maybe that one. Okay, so and is there one, could you show the one after that? Oh, no, sorry, go back, I just found it. So the first one says Urban Design Guidelines of Aurora Heights. Is that the original urban design for that subdivision when it was created?
Mr. Waters?
Mr. Chair, through Mr. Chair, that first cover is for the guidelines that are being prepared for stable neighborhoods.
Okay.
To be quite honest, it probably shouldn't be up there because it's not a master plan, it's a guideline.
Well, and also it just says Aurora Heights, and there were more stable neighborhoods than that. With respect to the public engagement consultant, we can all see how necessary that is. We have three or four, perhaps, members of the community here. So it's pretty sad. And this is the main tool that we're going to use, that we do use to plan the future development of the town. So I guess I could ask you the question, or Mr. Waters, how do we go about picking a public engagement consultant, and do you know what the strategy is going to be and the cost?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have just completed an RFP for a public engagement consultant. So we have selected a consultant. It is being finalized through the process, so I cannot reveal who that is at this point in time.
Okay.
But they will help us with public engagement. They're a very experienced consultant that is doing similar work in other GTA municipalities. We've attempted initially to reach out the best we can. As you see Mr. Logue's
Yes.
presentation, we've connected with over 300 people. We've received some really good feedback at various locations within the town, but we know we need to do more, and we need to raise the bar on public consultation.
Thank you. And would this, this firm and this person or people that we hire, I mean, is that going to be are they going to be planners, or is this going to be their specialty? Because it's also a communications aspect.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it is a planning consulting firm, a very large firm that specializes in public engagement and experience with official plan reviews.
Thank you. And it's going out to RFP. So because we seem to be hiring the same consultants over and over, so this will go out to an RFP, and then we'll get in.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've completed the RFP. We have rated the proposals. It is not the firm that is used to doing work here.
Councillor Gardner, let's continue that conversation when we get into the item. So we're just, do you have any presentations?
Well,
on
that was
what's on-
part of the presentation. That's all I've got.
Yeah. Okay, great. So that brings an end to the presentation. So we'll move into the item. So can I have a mover for the planning item, please? Councillor Gallo, Councillor Gardner. Questions or comments on the item? Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. I wanted to just move back a bit and understand what really we're doing here. If this is an exercise in checking a box off because the Planning Act tells us we have to have a public planning meeting, I think we'd all agree that we failed miserably, considering that we're hiring a consultant to help us engage the public, yet we're having this meeting before we've hired them. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Perhaps they could have helped with filling the chambers to this meeting. I'm here to listen to the public. That's what I want to hear. And I'm prepared to get up and leave because that's done. We're done. I have plenty of time to speak into this microphone and engage in what I believe we should be doing with this process. But if we're here to listen to the public, to guide this process, we've failed miserably. And I'll underline that. I have a whole bunch of questions, but I don't know the value to them. I spoke about the active transportation. We spoke at the beginning about we contacted interested parties. I'd say the public, pretty interested parties, but I don't know who we geared. I'm going to assume, maybe someone has that question, that answer to that. I'm going to assume we contacted the development community, landowners, significant landowners, I guess. Maybe someone could answer that. Who did we, at the beginning we said we contacted interested parties, specifically contacted interested parties. Who were those interested parties?
Mr. Logue, can you respond to that, or?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the notice was in the paper for 2 weeks running in both papers. We did notice to everyone that had expressed an interest through our planner pop-ups, basically. So we did, as we were mentioning in the presentation, met with about 300 people over the summer and the fall. So about half of those people indicate to us they want to remain engaged in the process. So that's 150 people right there that were notified as well. There was also, it was promoted on social media by our corporate communications people, and it was also on our official plan review website, aurora.ca/OPR. So the information's been out there for at least a month, in anticipation of this meeting. So we also had, at least a dozen people drop into the open house that that didn't stick around, that also spoke with us. So, throughout the process to this point, we've engaged, 300 plus people already. So,
Councilor Gallo?
Yeah. It just, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, it just, to you and to my council colleagues, it just doesn't make sense to me, to have this meeting prior to engaging and spending a significant amount of money on a consultant to help us do this. It just doesn't make sense why we would have this now without that consultant help us do this. It bothers me to no end because I know how important this is, and I don't want to leave any stone unturned. And we had some great suggestions, and there's many people out there with just as valid suggestions that if we engage and we plant the seed and we do whatever we have to get them here, the end result will be so much better. I don't want this to be an internal process. I want the public engaged in a significant way. I ran on that, and I'm standing by that. I'm disappointed that we're here and the chambers are virtually empty on a very important issue. We have to do better.
Thank you, Councilor Gallo. I mean, staff has used every avenue that they had, our communications department, to whether it be social media, local papers. They've done a pretty good job over the years to increasing the breadth of people and avenues that they communicated, town communication. They did say that, Mr. Logue did say that we did receive 300 respondents, and they were valuable input. The way I took it was that this is the background study. This is the kickoff event, and it was very high level. And so I wasn't sure how many members of the public we were going to get because it was so high level. So through me, Mr. Logue, when we go do a deeper dive, there's 5 levels, stages of this process. Is there going to be another opportunity for the public to be engaged and participate?
Through you, Mr. Chair, most definitely. Yeah, I mean, this is just the first touch point, right? And we're at a pretty high level, just rolling things out. So we're probably at a stage now where we haven't got into a lot of that detail of what the meat of this plan is going to be. So, I mean, all of those 6 theme areas, we're going to end up with discussion papers on each of those that are going to come before council, and those are going to generate a lot of discussion, I would assume, right? So I think this is just the first of many official opportunities to engage with the public on this. So this is going to be a multi-year process, right? This is probably going to take us into 2022. So there'll be many more opportunities, and the subscriptions to our emailing list are going to grow, and hopefully people will become more and more engaged as we move along, especially once we have that consultant on board. They can only help increase our numbers, I think, in terms of turnout. So
thank you. And through you to Mr. Waters, Councillor Gallo raised a great question in terms of the timing of the consultant. Is it a tactical part of staff in bringing the consultant later on, in a later stage of this process, or should we, in your mind, should we have obtained the consultant prior to the initial kickoff event?
Through Mr. Chair, my experience has been that staff initially connect with the community as an early touch point, as Mr. Logue said, in the process to gather some input both from the public and from agencies and stakeholders. And concurrently, we go through a process to bring on a engagement consultant, and then we start, really refining, what type of engagement we want to undertake and move forward in that direction. So I think what has happened today is not uncommon. It's certainly not the end, and it's at the very early stages of the process. And as Mr. Logus said, there'll be extensive public consultation undertaken. Once we start refining the focus areas, we'll have consultation on each one of those. So, and it doesn't prevent us from gathering more input as we move through the process.
And thank you. So, in which stage would the consultant be brought in then?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I see the consultant being brought in right after this meeting, to be quite honest with you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Just a couple of questions. The first thing is just in terms of this report in general, item number 3 says that we provide a copy of this report to the following municipalities. Is there a rush or reason to do that right now?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chair. It's just to keep them informed of the process, and that the region is the approval authority for our official plan. Lake Simcoe will have a really major role to play, and also the abutting municipalities, because we border on these municipalities. They'll be interested in what happens against their boundaries.
Okay. So through you, Mr. Chair, so basically this is just to let them know we're kicking off the process. We haven't really gathered much data. We're just sharing our official plan as it is, and then there's going to be changes to it as we go through the process. Okay, perfect. So what I'm looking at is on page 5 of 13, a couple of third paragraph in, it's the technical steering committee comprising of staff departments, and it goes on to mention a community-based steering committee comprised of residents, stakeholders, councillors, is proposed to be formed at the outset of the review. So I think this is very important. And I don't think we should hold any numbers in terms of how many participants we get. I just remember the first one. I was fortunate enough to be part of that exercise. I think I mentioned it at the last committee meeting. And it's where you get all the ideas. It's where you get everything flowing, and people are put in different groups and different rooms, and all areas of our facilities are packed, and there's facilitators in every room, and people just focus on certain things that I'm sure that the consultant will help us with, and staff, and we come up with these great future ideas and things that we need to consider. Like we heard just a few tonight from the public, and I'm sure we'll hear more of the ones that came to the open house. But I think that's a really big step, and I see that as where we're really going to get, the most information from our public. And I also noticed that there was a comment, just a question, is that there had to be maybe 3 counselors assigned to this. I don't think there should be a limit on how many counselors. I don't know if that's in the plan or if we have to approve that. I think if we all want to be involved, we should all be involved, especially at the open, the steering committees, because again, I don't see this as being 5 people or 10. I could see this being 50, 100 people. And that's what we did last time and came up with a really strong plan. And I think to do that, you need to have much engagement and not put a cap at it. I mean, if you have a real problem with facilities, then we'll have to maybe look at that. But I don't know if you can think about that in terms of how that would be pulled off, and maybe speak to some of the people that may have been around back then and how they did it, because I think it was done very well, for sure. And I guess just overall, yeah, I mean, would love to have had more public engagement this evening, but it is what it is. We've done what we could. Staff did what they could in terms of trying to get engaged, public engagement. But I really do believe when you get into the technical steering committee and you really make it an open house, I mean, a real open opportunity. In fact, when the first one was called in this engagement, it was just a call. Nobody even had to RSVP, and people just showed up, and it was awesome. And I think that's when you really get that, and you have several dates, maybe 2 or 3 dates where people can come. And hopefully you get that real strong engagement. And I think if we clearly state what we're trying to do here, and this is the future of your town, how you want the town to be, how you want to live here, this is how you get to input, and we take it seriously. So those are just my comments for now, and I think again, I'm really looking forward to the consultant coming on board and heading into this technical steering committee, and then moving on to a community-based steering committee, which is, I think, the really big hit that we're going to need to move forward. Thanks. That's just my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just kind of echoing a little bit what's been said around the table, and I just want some clarity. So are you suggesting, Mr. Waters, that the public is going to have another opportunity for a meeting like this to have some more feedback based on this living document?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chair. There won't be a formal meeting like this, but there will be opportunities for the public to comment on the overall scope of the OP and then the various focus areas. So just to clarify, this is a statutory requirement of the Planning Act. We need to have this meeting to move forward, but this is essentially a kickoff meeting. We will move forward with extensive consultation as we move forward through the process. So this is not the only meeting to take place. This is a formal meeting. It's a requirement of the Act, and so this is the only one we're going to have of this nature.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Chair, just trying to understand, and maybe to consultant here. You had mentioned there was many different outlets and where we were engaging with the public, and there was a list there that said through the summer, although I didn't see anything prior to September, so it seemed to be just from the fall. And then I think what you had said that we only had stuff online for 1 month in advance. And I guess really my concern is that I know this is a kickoff, and this is the first time I'm seeing this presentation, and we're asking the public to come in with their input. I just want to know what they're basing their input on, and have they been able to have the opportunity to see the presentation that you've presented to us. So I feel like we're all kind of walking in blind on this kickoff. So if we are getting some input, where are they actually getting that from if it's only been available for a month? Did I mishear that information?
Mr. Logue or Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The statutory requirement is we give 30 days notice of this meeting. That's our statutory requirement. But we have consulted throughout the spring and summer and into the fall of last year at various pop-up events. And that helped us shape and form the focus areas that you have before you today, in addition to sort of what we heard from our internal staff and from some of the agencies as well.
Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. So maybe I just didn't question it right. So the presentation that we were presented today, is that something that was available to the public prior to coming out tonight to see what was compiled through these pop-up events? So when they did have their opinions today, they could see the same thing we were presented with.
Mr. Logue?
So not that slide deck, through you, Mr. Chair, sorry, not that slide deck specifically, but the boards that you would have seen out in the hall there, we were bringing those boards with us to all the planner pop-ups, or as many as we could bring as fit with us. So, I mean, those 8 planner pop-ups, we were bringing that information with us. I mean, as well, the staff report that would accompany this was, that's been available as well. And we had a similar report that went in December as well. So the information's been out there, not the slide deck specifically, but we've been bringing that information to the people to get their feedback on it, basically.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. So what you're saying is that if you were not at the pop-up event, you would not have seen any of the information that was presented for feedback. It was not available online for a resident to look up on their own accord.
For you, Mr. Chair, yeah, I mean, the general, the information is also available on the website, aurora.ca/OPR, so it's up there as well. Not the slide deck per se, but the content and, describing what we're undertaking, yeah.
Councillor Gilliland?
Okay, and through you, Mr. Chair, 300 was the number of participants since last summer. Is that, I don't know which person I'd be asking, but is that something considered a good number or measure with a public of 60,000 people? I kind of feel that's kind of low, but perhaps maybe someone has some insight they can give me on that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that's a reasonable number of early consultation. I think and further to Mr. Logue's comment, these focus areas were already presented through the pop-up events. So they've seen the focus areas. They were generated by staff, and we received comments on the focus areas. So it's not like they have not seen them before. I think the 300 number is a fair number at this point in time for consultation. We're hoping to really increase that significantly as we move through the process.
Thank you. And I guess my only comment is like, I really feel that staff is trying to do their job to, get the public engagement and to get some feedback. But I think where my bone of contention is just where are they going to get this information? And I kind of feel like unless they were at a pop-up event, they wouldn't necessarily get all the information they want. I personally haven't seen what is online. Perhaps we could be circulated what was available online or given that in advance. I certainly would try and engage, but when we've talked about advertising in the papers and social media, what exactly was that kind of advertising? I guess for me, if I'm going to actually give public engagement, what kind of information are we actually giving them access to without physically being at a pop-up event? And I think that's where my confusion is. And I think that's where Councillor Gallo was going with the sense of this meeting tonight and actually getting public engagement as a kickoff. We're not to have another formal meeting like this, and I feel like it would have been in the best interest of the public to have a little bit more information with them to allow them to form an opinion on something that could allow us to have some sort of feedback to give back to the region of York, Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, Toronto. We have this whole list of authorities and towns that we're going to give this copy report to, but yet there's very little to report on. And I feel like this was part of their opportunity. Even though this is a kickoff, I understand it's very preliminary. There's a lot down the road we're going to connect with. But it would be really good to know that there's going to be another meeting that's formal or something to give public feedback, to also provide a copy to the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, York, all these other towns, because I feel like there really isn't much content that we can provide. Is it something or a good practice where we could have another public planning meeting after we've done the consultation and gathered all this information, so at least we have something that we can present to the public and say, this is another opportunity for you to come back now that we've done this review, now that we've got this consultation, is there any other feedback you can provide? Is that something that we would typically do or could do?
Mr. Waters?
Through Mr. Chair, nothing prevents us from coming back to public planning with another meeting. It won't be a statutory requirement. I would probably like to engage our consultant moving forward and determine when the best time to do that is. So it wouldn't be in a month or two. It probably would be.
Could be a year.
Well, I mean, what I'm hearing is that we should have another meeting within the next 3 months or so, just to sort of see if we can bring more people into the chambers and to get them to comment on what we've presented to date. I have no problem doing that. I just want to, I want to make sure it's the right time to do it. But I don't have no problem coming back with a public planning meeting in a similar fashion, but it's not a statutory requirement.
Councillor Gilliland?
I think I was thinking if we're hiring a public consultant to come and engage our public, that the whole point was to get them engaged. And once that engagement's been done, then the public would want to come out and have their say versus beforehand. I think that's kind of the whole point. So I would prefer to try and do a lot of legwork in the work so we have something to kind of present to the public and get them engaged to actually have a feedback as opposed to prior to that. Is that something that
perhaps I wasn't sure. Perhaps I wasn't clear in my response. I have no issue coming back to public planning with a similar type of meeting that we're having tonight, but it's not a statutory requirement. And I want to make sure that significant consultation has been undertaken with the help of our consultant before we come back to you with, I guess, similar information, but given the opportunity for the public or to increase the numbers of residents within the chambers to comment on what's before them.
Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. That's really what I wanted to know, is that we could come back and, when we do some public engagement, I really look forward to what we have to offer and the kind of methods that we can have to engage the public so we can get that kind of input. So I really appreciate we're trying to move forward, but I am interested in at least getting a little bit more public engagement and public input in a formal setting.
Mr. Waters, do we have a dedicated site for, I think I did see one, but can you confirm, Mr. Logue, do we have a dedicated website for the official plan review? And when we have upcoming events, pop events or anything of that nature, that'll be there so that people will know where to go.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, we do. Yep, it's been it's been running since last year. So it's aurora.ca/OPR, that's short form for official plan review. Aurora.ca/official plan review. So, you know, there's some summaries of some of the consultations that have happened to date up there, and the notice for today's meeting was on there as well. So. Yeah, also we hosted a survey on there as well. That I think that was mentioned in the presentation, but just maybe something to add in terms of some of the additional engagement we've done that speaks to perhaps beyond the numbers in the room. That we've had almost 150 surveys filled out as well. So those are people that have been engaged as well. So I would think that, I mean, the statutory requirement, right, is that the public consultation starts today. So the fact that we've engaged already 300 before today, I think is a good thing.
Yeah. Thank you. And, you know, I think just as a reminder to council members that, you know, when we had, excuse me, citizen budget every year for before our budget meetings, and similar events, we rarely have a huge turnout in council. We put out their citizen budget for, you know, online surveys. We've done that for many years, and we don't get that much of a response. So to actually get 300, I think that's quite an accomplishment. And sure, would we like more? You know, almost assuredly, we'd like to have more feedback. So you know, I don't want to harp on staff and the lack of response that we had, but relative to similar type of events, you know, I think it's quite good. You know, unless we're building a sidewalk or a monster home, you're not going to pack this room, and you're not going to get email responses or survey responses. So, you know, let's just put that into context. Councillor Gartner for the first time.
I'd just like to suggest perhaps that we have a banner on the homepage that directs people. Is it there? No, and a banner that actually stays on the homepage so that you can just open up the homepage and there it is. Thank you. With respect to Councillor Gilliland's and your discussion of another public planning meeting, the reason I like that is because all of the residents' comments will be on the record because it's actually at a planning meeting. So I hope we can, and certainly the consultants can help us figure out how to get more people out. It's somehow we have to try at least and ensure that people know that this is our main planning tool, and it's how their community is going to develop through the next several years. Well, 2041. I didn't ask Mr. Logue, so I could ask him now or ask you. You did mention climate change. When we last did this official plan, we spent the majority of 2010 doing this, and it got passed in September of 2010. The only thing that I see here is building a greener community. I mean, climate change wasn't on anybody's lips. Well, I'm sure on scientists' lips, but not on ours. So what is is it a mandate by the province? Okay, so how are we going to be going about that? And will we have a consultant or?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The growth plan requires the official plan to have conservation policies dealing with water, energy, air quality improvement, and integrated waste management and stormwater master plans, in addition to climate change, and include policies to address greenhouse gas emissions. We're mandated to have those policies in the official plan, and as I said, we're in 2020 now, and this plan was developed more than 10 years ago, so it's not current from that perspective. It doesn't conform. So we need to add those policies. We will assist with the help of a consultant to help us draft those policies. That's one of the next steps that we need to take.
Councilor Gardner?
Thank you. So with the 12 policy areas that we're looking at now, I don't believe one of them says climate change. So where will that fall? Building a greener community?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is one place for it. As I said previously, the principles are generally relevant in terms of good planning. They probably need to be updated in terms of our terminology, and we will certainly reflect climate change and conservation as part of the updating of those principles.
Councilor Gardner?
Thank you. Will it be a separate policy heading?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't know, to be quite honest. It may or may not.
Okay.
It may be part of an overall heading that deals with similar types of issues or topics. I can't really commit to that at this point, but it's early to say.
Councilor
Thank
Gardner?
you. Thank you. Thank you. With respect to what Mr. Aslan said, well, there are a lot of things, but I'm looking at design policies for roads, section 14 in the official plan. It says provide access for pedestrians, bicycles, and vehicles, opportunities for vistas, view corridors. I mean, it's not talking about safe transportation, safe and pleasant. I guess it is talking about pleasant, but it's certainly not talking about safe transportation for bicycles and maybe even walkers, especially if walkers and bicycles are trying to share the sidewalk. So could we do some more work on that? It is all over the world. People are trying to encourage. I mean, look at what they're doing with York Region. They're messing up Yonge Street in order to try and get more people to do public transit. So this is the way of the future and falls in with climate change. So do you have any ideas on that, or perhaps you can think about that? Because it's...
Mr. Waters, is that language that we can incorporate in our next, during the official plan
Through you,
review?
Mr. Chair, absolutely. There's probably other areas we could go through that identify somewhat outdated language that's not current in terms of policy that needs to be updated. So, again, it's going to be a full scan of the official plan, and where we need to make changes, we will make changes.
Thank you. Councilor Gardner?
Thank you. And we are a car-centered society. There's no doubt we like it that way, but we need to try and get more into the active transportation kind of centered. And it'd be great to have it in our OP. The other thing, he was talking about mixed use and rental in neighborhoods. If I'm looking at affordable housing depends how you look at it. If you're looking at affordable housing as subsidized housing, that's one thing. But if you're looking at the stats for Toronto is no longer affordable for engineers, teachers, people that, you would seem to be able to have enough money to buy a premise in Toronto. So they're moving out here. And I'm thinking that affordable housing has two meanings. One is what it says here, and we've never followed it, that it's in section 17. Oh, it's in the glossary. Housing for which the purchase price results in annual accommodation costs not exceeding 30% of gross annual income. And then it goes, for rentals, it's 30% of annual income. And they're talking about low and moderate income homes. So we need to think about low incomes and then moderate incomes. Habitat for Humanity has teachers on their list of people who can have a Habitat for Humanity house. So that means we're really in trouble. can we do some more work on that to see if we can get some, not just large, expensive, single-family homes in Aurora? Or how would we go about trying to do that?
Mr. Waters?
Through Mr. Chair, it's finding the appropriate locations to support that type of higher density housing. And that typically will be the land surrounding the Aurora GO station. There will also be opportunities along the Yonge Street corridor within the promenade plan for higher density housing, both condominium and also rental, to be developed over time. And that's where the bulk of our growth is going to occur over the next 20-some years.
Councillor
that'll
Gardner,
probably-
if you want to wrap it up, and I'll give you a second shot at it.
Well, on the Yonge Street corridor, that'll probably be apartments or condominium type. I'm also thinking of housing, row housing, houses opposed to housing, but I'll wait.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo?
Is our procedural bylaw for public planning 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
And only twice? We have to fix that. Was this open house that we just had here through you the only open house we had in 2020? That's a yes.
Yes.
The only reason I'm asking is because I just quickly went on to the website, and in that report from December, it says that the town will also host an open house in early 2020 to introduce the official plan review and provide the community and stakeholders an opportunity to provide their feedback on the draft work program. Doesn't necessarily link it to, a few hours prior to the public planning meeting, unless we're gauging that, and then in a future non-public meeting, we'll take whatever was discussed out there and incorporate that in some way. I said it wasn't just to vent, I can assure you. On page 4, it says, one primary consideration in an official plan review is determining the scope of the review. The scope of the review for the town's 2010 official plan must be carefully defined in order to identify the resources that will be required to undertake the review and analysis in a timely manner. The next paragraph says, the purpose of the special meeting, the purpose of this meeting required under the Planning Act is to determine the scope of the review. So are we determining the scope of the review with public input? Is that what we're doing tonight? That's what the meeting is for. And that's my point. How can we determine the scope of the review, engaging the public, if we've had next to no public engagement? I mean, I'm a little disappointed, to be quite honest, that the council members, other than Councillor Gilliland, that's supportive of what I'm saying. And unless we say it in these microphones, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not going to change. It's not going to change. We need to stand up and for the public, it's unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. And I'm disappointed that we're at this stage in such an important thing. Our report is telling us that the purpose of this meeting is to hear them and have them determine the scope of the review. If that's what we're here for, well, I consider it a failure. I'm happy to hear some of the comments, and that's great. I have my own, but the purpose of this meeting is not to hear me speak, as I said before. It's to hear the public. We haven't done that. We've failed to do that.
Mr. Waters,
I'm not finished.
sorry, I just wanted to help you, or maybe be able to respond to that question before you carried on. Would you mind if
I'm commenting. I'm not looking for a response. I know how I feel. And short of repeating what we've already heard, it's not going to change what I've seen. Is it fair to say that the region of York has to finish their review? And I find this also awkward that we're going through this without the region having finished their review, and their review will significantly, in my view, affect what we're doing. And I understand timing is an issue because the province has mandated June or July of 2022 for us to complete this. And we have a year after the region completes their review in order to finalize ours. So June of 2021, we need to have the region finish theirs so that we can abide by the province's guideline to reach a final official plan review by June or July, whatever it is, of 2022. I find it awkward that because of that timeline, we're doing all this work, and I'm certainly not suggesting we don't do this work. But I don't know how we plan to guide our review of our official plan without having numbers from the region. We won't know this unless someone will correct me if I'm wrong. What are we trying to achieve? What is our number that we're supposed to be having in our community? I realize we can't fix that because we're at the mercy of the regions, but we have to keep that in mind. I'm all for moving this forward. I want to have a significant, and without repeating myself, public engagement in this process. And the report is telling me the purpose of this meeting, and I'm sad to say that we haven't accomplished that. If we're going to be moving towards another public planning meeting, I'd be in full support of that. And the third resolution on the floor doesn't make any sense to me because I share the view that there's not much in this report. What exactly are we sharing with all of those municipalities? What are they going to get from this report? They'll get a lot from further down the road and public engagement and our input. They'll get a lot from that. But from this, I'm not sure what they're going to get.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor Gallo. Mr. Waters, my understanding, and in my conversations with staff prior to tonight's meeting, my understanding was that the months of consultation that we've had with the public was about obtaining the scope of this process and thematic schemes that should be included. So it's not just about tonight where we're going to get public input, but we've been getting public input since late summer. Is that correct?
Through Mr. Chair, that is correct. So we initially, you can call it the first phase of public consultation, where we went out and did the pop-ups and we engaged with over 300 people. I find that tonight is kind of the end state of that process, and that after tonight we'll be into another stage of public consultation, a more comprehensive consultation with the help of a consultant that will help us sort of confirm and refine the focus areas that we presented to you tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys?
Through you, Mr. Chair, then where's the input from all the public if we've done that for the last few months? Now, before you answer that, I do feel, and I'd like to recommend, if possible, that we ask for another public planning session on this and that we don't communicate out. I don't hear, I don't hear a lot. I know we've done a lot of work, but we didn't have, and I do feel that we've done probably the cart before the horse. I think we need to have our consultant in here. I think we had to have, those items on, we did the crucial steps to determine the scope, but we haven't gotten the information from the public and from ourselves to be gathered and looked at. So I do feel we need to do these items, the technical steering committee, the community-based steering committee, and then once we have that and all that input, then we can come back, put at least a draft of input of what we believe It needs to be reviewed in the official plan and then go from there. Because I don't know, what is our input? Do we have a catalog of input?
Mr. Waters?
Through Mr. Chair, we do have that information, but we didn't include it as part of this report because it was somewhat informal. It wasn't recorded as you would have minutes of a
Right.
public meeting.
Okay.
So that input is available, but it is not recorded or official type of input.
Okay, perfect. So through you, Mr. Mayor, and I understand totally, Mr. Waters, so I understand now clearly what's going on. And I think in terms of, because of all the hard work, let's put it this way, you guys have done a lot of hard work to try to get here. And I think without having the consultant pull in the detail, it's hard to make this report meaty, like to really give these municipalities and the region anything to consider from Aurora's perspective. I'd like to suggest another public planning. I don't want to put a limit on it. I mean, I know we have a deadline, 2020, we got to get this done. But maybe we hire this consultant, we have these planning sessions. When you think you're ready and the staff is ready to come back with the input, we could have a full list in this document, and then we can say, okay, here's our draft, guys. Now we're going to keep working on it. I don't know if that's okay, but I think hearing all the discussion around the table tonight, I think we'd be in a better position as a town of Aurora to really have that formal documentation that unfortunately we didn't have enough public input tonight. We were hoping for that. Didn't happen. So let's get those committees in order. Let's get that detail and put it back into the public plan. If we don't have, hopefully we don't have a risk of missing a date, holding it at another time later this year. I don't know, I'd like to throw that through Mr. Chair, to Mr. Waters. If there's no risk of any harm in that, maybe we can take a kick at it that way.
Mr. Waters?
Through Mr. Chair, and there's no risk to do that in terms of timing. The timing is far off in terms of when we need to conform. Just a point of correction regarding conformity. The region needs to conform by July of 2022.
Okay.
And I believe area municipalities are a year later.
Okay, good.
But the region is moving towards adoption towards the end of 2021. But I don't have any issue coming back with another public planning meeting. Once we, engage our consultant and we have a robust strategy to engage the public, and then I have no problem coming back and having another meeting, and hopefully we will have more people here.
Perfect. And through you, Mr. Chair, would you think in that plan that we could also have that technical steering committee set up and the citizen committee? Because if we had that type of a kickoff and that kind of data to bring to a public forum, then what we could have is a report with all that detail in there, and then the public, wait a minute, and then they come in. I don't know, is that possible?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I really would like to engage all of the residents first before we break up into a committee. The technical committee is a technical committee to deal with sort of policy refinement. It's made up of staff and the agencies.
Okay.
The community steering committee will be residents, stakeholders, council members. But I don't think we're at that stage where we engage to that point, to be honest with you. I think we need to bring the public out first. We need to hear some additional input beyond what we've heard to date. And then we can then move towards a steering committee approach for both the technical side and also the community side as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, through Mr. Chair. Then I still think if there's not a huge risk in delaying our input to the municipalities in the region, if we could try, when the consultant's on board, to engage further public input, see what the next planning meeting holds. If it's the same turnout, we've done the best we can do. Yeah. And if not, and we've got a fulsome turnout, then we've taken that risk. And without a risk, it gives it that chance that we allow the town to really come out and share their thoughts and ideas.
Thank you,
I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Councillor Humphries.
Oh, one last thing. Sorry, before you, when we do another public planning, I would like to ask that we do sort of a campaign type, marketing campaign type engagement. So real powerful digital boards, signs. You know, I know that you've done a great job with pop-ups because they are great. You get a lot of detail on pop-ups, but like a real, like full, you know, out there campaign. And I think that will also help as well.
Thank you, Councillor Humphries. And, you know, again, this is a multi-year process.
Yes.
And so it's not like something's going to be built in 6 months and we lost the opportunity for residents to speak again or again and again. So I do understand Councillor Gallo's concerns and Councillor Humphries and Gillen's and Gardner, pretty well everybody. I'm sure we would like more engagement, and we can always say, you know, did we do enough? And so if it would appease, you know, majority of council, if not all, then, you know, we have plenty of time to engage it and engage residents. And we as councillors, we certainly can speak to staff and give our input as to the timing and what we'd like to incorporate in the. Sorry, that kind of lost my track. So we can communicate to staff about how we would like to do that, give our recommendations. Councillor Gardner?
My apology, I have a very rude cricket living in my phone. And I was trying to get some things out of the way the first time I spoke, but I completely agree with the points Councillor Gallo has made, Councillor Gilland, Councillor Humphries. And if memory serves me, Councillor Gallo and I sat on the last official plan review committee. We spent a year, less than a year. We went through this plan, the old plan, line by line. We had plenty of time to do that, and we had the region's OP in front of us. So to me, this is very premature. I really appreciate staff wanting to get ahead of the curve because we're always, seems to me, behind the curve. So I appreciate the sentiment, but I would only be interested in approving the first recommendation that the report be received.
Is that an amendment?
Or we can just call them separately. We can just call them separately. I mean, we don't have enough substance here for staff to bring back a work plan. And I was at least a couple of those informal sessions that our former planner was in charge of. And to me, the public just wanted an explanation of what an official plan was. They really weren't ready to make any kind of comments. They just wanted to understand the process. So I don't even know if there were comments. Anyway, it's these can just be called separately. It's the intent of this meeting. I don't think we've captured it all this evening. So.
Mr. Waters, can you speak to Councillor Gardner's concern about recommendation number 2 and 3, please?
Through Mr. Chair, recommendation number 2, gives us direction to report back with a work plan that would also include the public consultation strategy to sort of help us guide us through. It's a roadmap to help us guide us through the official plan review. I mean, that's a typical report that's brought back as part of this process. It's not, you know, it's a normal step to undertake. And number 3 is more of a belt and suspenders type of recommendation, just to inform our neighbors and the region that we're undertaking a review. It's more for information only.
Mr. Chair, if I might. The number 2 says that come back with a work plan that incorporates the feedback received to date from public consultation. Ladies over there, the feedback that number 2 is that the official plan review work plan that incorporates the feedback received to date from public consultation. we don't have, I mean, we thank you very much to the people who came out tonight, but we really don't have consultation from public feedback. Staff certainly has a lot of comments from us, and maybe that's enough for the work plan, but I think we can't put the public consultation piece in there. That to me, that is just not appropriate.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps I can suggest for recommendation number 2 that words such as prior to reporting back with the work plan, an additional public planning meeting be held.
Oh,
Can you repeat that, Mr. Waters?
oh, thank you. That would be great. On the understanding that we're going to have the communications consultant come in and do their work, and then the public plan, that would be fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Waters. Are you okay with that?
Linda,
So,
did you
for clarity?
get that, and can you put that up on the screen, please? Is there, for who? Councillor Gallo? Okay. Okay. Councillor Gallo, are you okay with the?
Through Mr. Chair, I believe I suggested that recommendation number 2 be amended by adding the words prior to staff reporting back with an official plan review work program that incorporates feedback from public consultation, that another public planning meeting be held on the scope of the OP review, something of that.
Post communication consultant work. Linda, something, yeah? Linda got it? Okay.
Councillor Gardner and
I
Councillor
know,
Gallo,
but
you're
it's
both
always
okay with
good to
that?
put things in writing.
Okay.
Isn't she amazing? Have you had a chance to work with Samantha?
Yep.
She's very...
There we go. That another public planning meeting be held and staff report back with the official plan review work plan that incorporates the feedback received to date from public consultation. So it's essentially saying we'll have another public planning meeting before recommendation 2 will execute. Is that okay, Councillor Gardner and Councillor Gallo seconded?
Another public be held.
Part of this prior to that report. That's exactly what I want.
Okay. Councillor Gardner?
It's not really. I'm very bad at motions, as everyone knows, but I think that it has to start with perhaps that after the communications consultant has finished their work, engaging the public for their opinions, that another public planning meeting be held.
Incorporates feedback received to date. So
I guess as long as the intent is clear, it's just
it's implied that the consultant will be involved.
it's just the line is not straight. Okay, good. That's all we want.
Yeah.
Crystal.
I don't
Okay.
think we need to wordsmith
Okay, I'm not a
this too much.
wordsmith, folks.
I'm sure staff will execute what council desires.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Gardner?
I mean, what are we going to say in number 3, what are we going to say, that we held a public planning meeting? Well, I mean, what are we going to,
Mr.
what
Waters?
kind of report are we going to give to?
Through you, Mr. Chair, number 3 is a belt and suspenders type of recommendation that just advises our neighboring municipalities that we're undertaking an OP review. That's all it does.
Okay. Yeah,
Councillor Gardner,
we
you're-
need to do that, right? Yeah. Yeah, okay.
I think you're going to have to wrap up, Councillor Garner.
Thanks.
5 minutes. Okay. Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. Am I speaking to the amendment?
It's a friendly amendment, so
Okay.
yes.
I'm a language stickler. And from what I understand, that we do have some public consultation that was given to us, not just tonight, but prior. And I think it's important that we do take that information and incorporate moving from now and when we do have the consultation. So I'm looking at this in a different lens that, you know, we should have the original 1, 2, and 3, but add, and that we have another public planning after the consultation. So you're still kind of doing number 2 twice. But right now it's saying that we're not doing anything until we have that other public planning meeting. And I think that it's good for us to have that public input incorporated now with what we're doing between now and when the consultant's been hired and get even more information. That's kind of how I'm reading this. Because it's telling me that we're not really doing anything until we have another public planning meeting moving forward. Can you clarify that for me? Because I just kind of feel like we need that to be separated.
So what would you...
I feel like it needs to be the original recommendations 1, 2, and 3, and then adding like a 4th recommendation that another public planning meeting be held after the consultant has been hired to give further feedback. So it's like a whole separate report.
I think, in my opinion, number 2 is clear. It doesn't talk about, when, incorporation of the consultant, but I think it's implied that we're not going to report back, or staff's not going to report back until the consultant and a further round of consultation with the public is going to happen. I don't think another line is necessary. This is a friendly amendment. I think it's implied, and I don't think staff's going to come back with anything other than what the spirit of our intent is.
So help me understand that when, as far as this, we're going to hire a public engagement consultant. What is the timeline on that?
Mr. Waters?
Through Mr. Chair, the consultant has been hired. We're waiting for purchasing to officially retain them. And once they are officially retained, we will begin engaging with them. So that is imminent.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Chair. As far as the process with the consultation, what is the timeline for that to be completed with the public, that report?
Mr. Waters?
Through Mr. Chair, I can't say that at the moment because we haven't met with the consultant and mapped out a plan for consultation.
Councilor Gillen?
So just because I've never been through this before, does that mean that it could be like 3 months, 6 months, a year? I'm just trying to gauge and understand what it is that's being directed, because it's an implied statement, and again, I'm a stickler on language, and I just want to make sure that the intention of number 2 is being utilized in the way that I think all of us are trying to communicate.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've heard loud and clear that we need to come back to public planning, and prior to that, make sure we undertake significant engagement to get to a point where we can report back on another public planning meeting and undertake engagement to make sure that we have hopefully significant numbers sitting in the stands there.
Councilor Gillen?
I'd still like to see that another public planning meeting be held after the public consultants report back to staff. I still think that language needs to be in there. Personally, I understand that you understand that, and it's implied. It's just with the language that's there. I just kind of feel like whether, tomorrow you're hit by a bus, we have to hire somebody new. That's not the direction of what that says. That means that we can have a public planning meeting at any given time, whenever it's felt, due to what's being directed here. There's nothing here saying the intention of when we actually want to have it held, and I just want to make sure that is. I don't want to waste anybody's time with this, an additional public planning meeting, unless with the intention of having this step being done. So I do feel that it should say that another public planning meeting should be held after the public consultation has been completed and report back to staff. So after the public the consultant has been completed his report. That little statement.
Councillor Gillan, what if we said that another public planning meeting be held prior to staff reporting back with an official plan review?
What do you mean prior to, say that again?
So that another public planning meeting be held prior to staff reporting back with an official plan review work plan. So that gives you a comfort of, it's going to come before something. And keep in mind, because this is a multi-stage process, we can't, staff, even if they wanted to delay this, they can't delay it forever without stopping another phase from happening. So, this multi-year process with 5 phases, there is a implied deadline after each stage because they all depend on one another to be completed. So staff can't prolong this like a year or 2 years from now. It has to be within a certain time frame. So I'm not sure that we need to have an exact time frame or timeline to give them guidance or to give us certain comfort. But if we put in prior to staff coming back, reporting back, I think that that might appease what you're trying to accomplish.
I mean that's fine. I just really want to make sure it's after the public consultation has been done with the hired consultant. I just want to make sure that's when it's done, not before but after. So if that is understood prior to the report back with official plan, I'm fine with that. But I just really want to make sure that we're not missing a step in between.
Okay. So you know what? If you want to put in an amendment, then why don't you put in the amendment in and we'll just vote on it and move on. Okay. So what? So Samantha or Linda, do you know what Councillor Gillan wants? I think she wants another line.
Yeah. That's exactly all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Can we incorporate that in number 2?
After held, we put after the public planning, the public consultation process is complete, staff report back with official plan review, and the rest of it stays the same.
Did you get that, Linda? So that another public planning meeting be held after public planning process
Public
is complete,
consultation.
or
Public-
consultation is complete,
Yeah.
and staff report back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Mr. Waters his concern is that to say complete means, if we want to be sticklers for language, that means the whole public consultation is complete over a multi-year process, so we know that this is going to go on for years, right? So maybe complete. How about a second phase?
Well, how about after public consultation, public consultation and staff report back? No.
Or after another public consultation?
No. What is it, the consultant that we're hiring? You call it the public, what is the term that we're hiring?
Public engagement consultant. Public engagement.
Okay, so after the public engagement consultant's work and staff report back.
So that another public planning meeting be held
Public engagement.
after the public consultation is complete with,
Is underway.
in partnership with the public,
Is underway and staff report back.
you got that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to be clear, so it would be that another public planning meeting be held after the public engagement consultant's work is complete and staff report back with an official plan review
But not complete because,
He doesn't want to say complete.
work.
Underway.
okay, another round of public consultation, including the consultant.
We'll just say after the public engagement consultant is work is underway and staff report back with an official plan. So it means it's in progress. Does that make sense? That we're engaging with them?
Linda, you have that?
Pardon me?
Okay.
Right.
So I think
get
this is
that.
the new verbiage, that another public planning meeting be held after the public engagement consultant's work is underway and staff report back with an official plan review work plan that incorporates the feedback received to date from public consultation. Well, that's the longest. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Gillan, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's wordy, but it's okay.
Okay. I think we've exhausted all our comments. I think we've all went around
Just
twice.
don't get hit by a bus.
Well, it's the same amendment. It's a friendly amendment, but I'll give you another commentary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could I just understand more about what this communications specialist is going to be doing? Are they going to be doing a map like a roadmap of how we should go about doing the consultation, or are they actually going to be carrying out the consultation?
Mr. Waters?
Through Mr. Chairman, both.
Councilor Gardner?
So then, could it not be underway is a strange term, because how do you define underway? Could it be more? I don't know. Okay. I'm willing to leave it the way it is, but underway could be after a month.
I think everyone,
Okay.
we're
It's
wordsmithing
done.
so much that we're undermining staff's, our confidence in our staff, right?
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So if there's no other question, let's call a vote. All those in favor? Councilor Gardner, did you still want to do this separately, even though I think we've massaged? So, okay. So, we'll do this all together. All those in favor? Great, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. So that brings us to confirming bylaw. May I have a motion to approve the confirming bylaw? Councillor Gallo, Councillor Gartner, all in favor, using the tabulator? Great, that passes. May I have a motion to adjourn, please? Councillor Humphreys and Councillor Gardner, thank you. That carries.